Rook is the easiest operator in R6. All you have to do is drop your armor packs when you spawn in. That's literally it. A literal brick can do that. But most operators are a lot harder than this, which is why I'll be explaining how to play every single one of them, starting with the easiest and working our way up to the hardest operators in R6. This video will also have a secret plot about your dad, so stay tuned for that. Spoiler alert, I saved him for last because he's the hardest guy I know. Now anyways, we already covered Rook, but our second easiest operator is Sentry. Because of Sentry's access to multiple secondary gadgets, you can break some decent combinations for free kills or good map control. Bring impacts in C4 for more damage against shield operators, or bring extra info with barbed wire and proximity mines. Sentry doesn't have a lot of room for improvement. You pretty much just use the stuff you have and then shoot people, making him super easy to use. The easiest attacker though is Thatcher. As Thatcher, your main focus is to use the EMPs to disable Cade Claws, bandits, and mutes for your hard breachers so that they can open up reinforced walls. There's a lot you can do with the EMPs outside of wall denial as well. The first is using them to disable electronic traps and cameras. This is especially useful when entering the bomb site, as it's most likely that the defender gadgets will be around these doorways. The other thing you can do is throw them down on your planter as they plant. This adds another layer of safety to the plant, potentially denying enemy C4s and smoke grenades that are coming in to take out the planter. When helping hard breachers at higher skill levels, you'll want to EMP twice in a row with a short break in between to deny Cade tricking. Bandit can still trick the wall between the EMPs, which unfortunately Thatcher can't do much to stop, so if it's happening, try to find somewhere else to push from or another wall to open. Then you have Dokk, an operator with a good gun and lots of health, so all you need to do is run around and shoot everyone you see. Priority number one is healing though, so if you notice a teammate has lost health, try to get a stim onto them. I somehow still struggle to convince my champion teammates to do this, but hey, that's a Dokk main for you. He does have the bailiff, remember, so healing a teammate from above or below is also a viable option, being able to make a small hole in the floor to do it. You should also be using that bailiff in the prep phase to make rotate holes between bomb sites. Then we have Striker. Striker is a fantastic attacking operator, as long as you have a plan ahead of time. So make a plan of attack and pick the two best secondary gadgets that are going to help you achieve it. That might be EMP gadgets combined with hard breach tools to be a self-sufficient breacher, or flashes and grenades to clear defenders out of power positions. She's a very flexible operator that can achieve a lot within a round and has the M4, one of the best guns in the game, to back it up. This is an operator of versatility, so don't be afraid to change your plan after making it and be sure to use all that utility to help. Striker also has a secondary shotgun, which is ideal for vertical play and opening hatches to add more pressure to the defense. Warden is also pretty simple, having a one-button ability that counters any flashes or smokes. Again, not sure why my champion teammates still refuse to use it. I don't know. To play Warden right, play him with purpose. Warden is a great counter pick to teams that use a lot of utility, but most just don't use it effectively enough to make Warden a necessary operator. Picking him all the time doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you have a plan for him, he can be the perfect option. Grabbing the shotgun and holding tight areas with the added safety of the goggles allows you to be confident in your control, knowing you won't be flashed and cleared or smoked out by a glass. If they do try to flash or smoke, you just activate the goggles and you're back to a fair fight. The SMG-12 is a great gun, but you shouldn't be picking him just for that. Play in strong areas and contest entrances aggressively, but don't overextend the reach of his weapons. He's a close range operator and best played like that, so put down the MPX and pick up the M5 shotgun. Another operator with a one-button ability is Finka. All you have to do is use your ability when you see your team has taken damage, and that's pretty much it. Not only are they gonna instantly get 20 HP back, but they'll also receive a boost in ADS speed and some other niche benefits. The point is, if they are taking damage, they're probably in a gunfight. So not only will that health buff add an extra layer to them, but it will help them ADS faster and increase their opportunity to win the fight. You can also revive down teammates and yourself with the stims, so always be ready to activate that ability. It might sound complicated, but it's really not. When teammates need health, just heal. That's it. I'm kind of starting to notice a trend here. Finka, Warden, Dokk, all some of the most simple operators in the game, but your average top rank player simply cannot seem to figure out how to use their ability. It's almost like the top rank means nothing these days. Such a shame. If you do find that you haven't used your stims much throughout the round, or your teammates just aren't taking damage, a well-timed Finka stim is still very effective during a push, as it will give a temporary 20 HP overheal to your whole team on top of the ADS buffs. Not to mention, it will clear the effects of elements and allow you to see further if hit by Fenrir's. defenders. If you want to really abuse her though, get a teammate or two to run shield operators. The increased ADS speed takes these already annoying characters and makes them even more ridiculous. Not as ridiculous as getting +2 KD and 1000 skill thanks to the Poxonlox charm. If you subscribe to my Twitch channel, you can equip this bad boy to become one of the greatest R6 players alive. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can get it completely free. Just type !Prime in the Twitch chat and the instructions will follow. Boom! 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 Thermite is next as the backbone Heartbreacher in Rainbow Six Siege who brings 2 big booms to every attack. He opens massive new entrances for his team and is a huge benefit on most bomb sites. As Thermite, your main job is to open up main reinforcements for your team with the help of Thatcher or other counter wall denial ops. Extra Thermite charges shouldn't go to waste though, as they can be used on floors and soft walls to create vertical play and new lines of sight. Thermite is typically the player who will play the hard support role, being in the ideal position to push into the site from the breach and plant the bomb. Using your drone before pushing in is a great way to assess the situation on site and see if there's an opening to exploit. This could look like only 1 or 2 defenders on site that can easily be punished and killed, or an opportunity to get into a safe place to plant while your teammates cover. Sometimes just holding angles on the breach and pinning defenders down is the best option, maintaining control and stopping their rotates for some easy kills. Speaking of easy kills, we have Ashe. Ashe is a very popular operator in Rainbow Six Siege, and for a good reason. She's a 3-speed operator with 2 very strong weapons and can easily destroy utility that might be in her way. As Ashe, you can play really however you want, whether it's as an aggressive entry or as a passive support operator. As you're using the launcher to destroy things, you're doing your job. Once you've gotten rid of the defender's utility, take control of that space by droning it out or have a teammate drone it for you. Having confidence in your gunfights is the key to success while pushing aggressively like this. If you see the opening for a play, just make it. Don't be afraid to die, because that play could win the whole round for your team, and if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, and you can learn from your mistakes for future attempts. And it would be a mistake not to subscribe to the channel right now, because I am dishing out quality content for you to get better at the game. We are still in the simple operators here, and our next one is no different. It's Jager. To play Jager, place ADSs to cover power positions and teammate utility. If you want to really fortify an area from projectiles, then place all 3 ADSs there for maximum safety. Even if you get triple flashed, you'll still be safe, with a high level of coordination being necessary to clear you out, or specific operators like Twitch and Flores. Once you've got your ADSs down and your secondary gadget, you can play however you want to, going off for a roam or anchoring on site with those ADSs. As Kapkan, place 3 Kapkans on one door and 2 on another instead of spreading them out with 1 on each door. If you do it this way, the 3 Kapkan door will instantly kill anyone, while the 2 trap door will instantly kill a 1 armor, down a 2 armor, and leave a 3 armor at 5 HP. This gives you the highest odds of getting kills with the traps, as spreading them out makes it more likely that they check future doors after hitting 1. The best Kapkan spots are doorways that are up against walls, because the attackers will be looking into the room for defenders, not at the wall for the EDDs. This way the traps will only get spotted out if the attacker is actively checking for them instead of just seeing them by accident. Knowing how to play Melusi comes down to one thing: the placement of the wubs. However, knowing how to play off of them is extremely important as well. The only difference being you don't have to be the one playing Melusi in order to use the wubs to your advantage. If you have a Melusi on your team, you don't want to overextend the information of the wubs. You can start on a light roam or small extension to catch any attackers who aren't droning, but you'll need to give it up at some point in order to use the wubs to their maximum potential. Placing the wubs on various entrances into the site is the best way to stop attackers from waltzing their way in for free. It slows them down and gives a loud audio cue that they're there, making for the perfect opportunity to swing them and have an advantage in the gunfight. You can even tuck it around the doorway so that they have to turn around in order to destroy it, giving you even more of an advantage. Holding aggressive angles that look onto the other side of the wubs is a big mistake that people make, as the attacker won't be slowed yet and you won't have that advantage. This is just an opportunity to get slammed in a gunfight. So instead, wait for that info and then peek when they're slowed. If you want them to be slow and gooey though, then Lesion is your guy. His success comes from his ability to gather information without being vulnerable on cams. He can stay gun up and act off the information from his goo mines in real time. Place Lesion mines under windows, on staircases, and on the edge of door frames to have info from every avenue. This allows you and your team to react to the mines swinging onto the attackers who've walked locked into them. You can hold practically any position with Lesion if you use the mines, reinforcements, and the secondary shotgun appropriately, so get creative and try to counter the attacking pushes by setting up in the areas they typically come from. He's a super strong control operator, so you want to make sure you're maintaining control with those mines. Sledge is another simple operator to play, having a sledgehammer for barricades, soft walls, soft floors, and any other bulletproof utility you might come into contact with. Basically, if it's a breakable gadget, just break it. Whatever defender utility you can safely get in melee range of, whether it's a castle barricade, barbed wire, or bulletproof camera, go there and break it. The less utility the other team has, the easier it is for yours to win. For utility you can't get in range of, use the grenades to destroy those as well. You can play vertically with the sledgehammer above the bomb site, although Buck and Ram are both safer options for this. Sledge is overall extremely versatile, so just play around your team and do what's needed to help them out. If you decide to play Thorn, hide your traps on common plant spots or common entrances around the site. They'll give you information if an attacker is there by deploying shortly after their arrival. These traps are not super strong as they take a while to deploy, but if you combo them up with elemines or barbed wire, they have a much better chance of claiming kills. If you want to incorporate the traps into your gameplay further, you can keep them in your pocket and throw them at attackers on the fly to force them out of areas. You can also do this as they plant, forcing them to either retreat or get clapped by the Thorn trap. These last two options are going to require a little more skill on your end and might take some practice to get the hang of. Me and your dad have a lot of practice together too. That's right, I didn't forget about him. He's always on my mind. Then we have Thunderbird. As Thunderbird, place your Kona stations in safe areas around the site where the attackers can't shoot them easily. If you plan on roaming, keeping the last one in your pocket and bringing it with you can be super useful. That way you or a fellow roamer doesn't need to retreat all the way back to the site to get healed. Now anyone on your team who needs health will have easy access to it. Be careful though, if you give up control of an area that has the Konas down, the attackers can use them as well, so try to destroy the Kona stations by shooting them before giving up an area that they're located. Other than that, just try to do as much damage to the attackers as possible. Remember, you can always get your health back and they can't, so even just doing a little bit of damage is worth it as long as you can get yourself healed again. To be a great Vigil player, try to get rid of as many drones in the prep phase as you can. The less information the enemies have from the start of the round, the more effective you can be and the more time you can waste. Roaming with Vigil makes the most sense, contesting entrances into the building and being a constant liability for the attackers. He's best used as a counter pick to attacking lineups, but a lot of the time other operators are just more useful. If the enemy is playing a lot of Lion, Deimos, Grim, or just taking a lot of map control, then switching to a Vigil is a fantastic choice as he can counter all of these things. He's pretty simple, just use his ability when you're getting droned or making a play. Wamai is also very simple, throwing discs wherever you so choose to protect power positions or teammate utility. He's similar to Jager in this way with a couple distinct advantages over his German friend. The first is that he can throw his discs on the fly, meaning keeping them in your pocket allows you to react to where the attackers are coming from and throw them out safely and easily whenever necessary. Secondly, he can hide the discs a lot easier than Jager's ADSs. They make no sound, meaning the only way to find them is directly seeing them, and because of the throw ability, you can hide them underneath objects and higher up, making them more difficult to find. If you're not sure where to place them, think about common attacker pushes and set them up to counter not only flashbangs and grenades, but ace charges too. Denying the last hard breach can be an absolute game changer for the outcome of the round. Then we have Ella. I like to pocket a mine or two for on-the-fly plays, like countering shield players in which you can throw the mine directly at them to disorient and swing the shield to the side. The impacts are also great for this, so try not to waste them on site setup. You can also use them in combination with the mines to set traps for the attackers, impacting out of a wall off the concussion of the mine. The concussion effect removes attackers' audio, so the chances are they won't even react, making for easy kills. In general though, just place mines around the bomb site for instant information on those areas. This is a great way to counter your average Ashbane who runs into sight and takes out your whole team. Next up is Alibi. Place the prismas under windows that attackers can't repel to force them to use utility in order to destroy them. If they don't do this, they'll get pinged once they decide to jump through. For you, this means you'll have accurate info on anyone that hops in and don't have to actively watch it. This is also great for obstructing the attacker's vision when they're used like this. The prismas can also be placed behind objects like desks and half walls to cover the base and make them more difficult to destroy. This is especially strong on areas around the site to almost guarantee that they're shot by the attackers. To take it a step further, use the observation blockers in front of the prismas so they can't drone them out as easily. This will make it even more likely that the attackers will fall for the trap, which is the perfect time to replace it with yourself and stand perfectly still, acting like a prisma. Because they've already shot it, they'll know now that it's a prisma and shouldn't shoot it a second time. Be sure to swing the attackers off the information you gain from the prismas using the clone's pings to get an advantage in the gunfight. And with Frost, the case is similar. You'll want to place the frost mats under windows that are common for attackers to hop in from and ideally can't repel. The closer to the site they are, the better, as it's more likely that someone on your team will be able to confirm the kill. Placing mats on staircases that attackers will walk up is also a great idea, as they'll be looking up the stairs for defenders instead of at the ground for mats. Use the secondary shotgun to help with the site setup and play however you want from there. These place and play operators like Frost, Jager, and Kapkan are great for beginners, but they're also great for flexibility. Just throw your stuff down and go wild without having to worry about what to do with your utility. And with Goyo, you can adopt that exact same philosophy, dropping the Goyos down and having a field day. Because a Goyo lasts 20 seconds, it gives both you and your teammate a lot of time to react to the attacker's positioning. This might mean you need to rotate back to site during that time or hit a flank before their final execute. Placing Goyos on barricades is a fantastic strategy because they will automatically deploy when the barricade is broken. This is great for common rush spots as they'll tank a lot of damage if they try to push through the flames, and then they'll also be separated from their teammates. It's great just for information too, being able to react to the barricades being destroyed knowing they're trapped on the opposite side. Add in the Vector with an ACOG scope and the fact he's a 3-speed and Goyo is one of the best operators in the game. Oryx just got buffed recently, making him actually really good now. He's simple to use, having a ton of movement perks that allow him to traverse the map in an extremely quick and effective way. In the prep phase, use the bailiff to do site setup. It's not worth taking the extra damage to make the holes with his dash unless you have a Thunderbird. After that, open up any hatches around the map that you might be able to use to flank later in the round. Don't open the site hatch though, unless your whole team is on board, because that's just a disaster waiting to happen. Roaming with Oryx is pretty nice, being able to maneuver the map quickly and cross dangerous lines of sight using the dash while also gaining information on where the attackers are. His main purpose while roaming is just killing people, so look for those one-on-one gunfights and take them. Then use the dash to escape and reposition. Repositioning off of the enemy's information is the most important aspect of roaming, so if you get into a gunfight or get spotted out by a drone, then pick a new spot or angle to hold where they don't have information on you. Once they do spot you out, pick a new spot and repeat the process. Did I also mention that Oryx is just jacked? He might have the perfect male physique, but your dad is still my #1 choice. Oh, I didn't realize I was clicking on this video for secret homoerotic lore on my dad. What's happening? Shut up, idiot. Your dad has always wanted me. Moving on. Lion is next, as an extremely simple ability that's hard to use well. You want to use the Lion scans in combination with drones to hold space for the duration of that scan. This is very useful when you see someone on a drone and want to push them, as it keeps your information accurate knowing they're stuck in that spot for the duration of the scan. You can also use these scans on an execute to freeze the defenders. Not only does this make for easier gunfights on the site as they're standing still, but it also delays anyone trying to hit you with a sneaky flank while you execute. And if you're hunting down a roamer who's trying to retreat, that lion scan will make it even more difficult and increase the likelihood that you or your teammates catch them before they make it to safety. So all you really need to do is learn how the timings work, and then you'll become a great lion player. Then we have the best hard breacher in the game, Ace. Ace thrives when using his Selmas for ranged breaches, opening new lines of sight or new lines of entry for the team. If you are the only hard breacher though, opening the main breach is going to be priority #1, as the pressure from here is going to be the most impactful. When opening main breaches, stack 2 Selmas on top of one another to make a bigger breach that you don't have to vault through. Going through the vault hole of a Selma is much more risky and gives the audio cue of the vault to the enemy team. Backing in and out of the breach is much more difficult, making it less than ideal. Crouching through a Selma is just as bad, being slow and an easy target to hit. Outside of straight hard breaching, Ace is still super good, being able to use the Selmas to open new lines of sight on any soft floor or wall, or to destroy shields even. Throwing a Selma down as you push to mask the sound of your footsteps is extremely effective, or even while you're going for a plant. It's a great distraction that keeps them guessing as to what you're actually doing, and if you have it, you might as well just use it. Jackal is great for tracking and hunting down roamers, using his little feet smelling scans to mark their location. information. Taking space in the map instead of going direct for sight is where his ability is going to be the most beneficial. Don't get too carried away in his scanner though, as multiple defenders are able to work together to take you out. That's why droning is still going to be useful even with Jackal's advantages, so don't rely entirely on his scanner. When you do scan an enemy, make sure to get the most value out of it by scanning the most recent footprints. Red are the most recent, then yellow, green, and lastly blue. You'll get more pings depending on what color the footprint was that you scanned, and once you've got those pings, be sure to push off of them and try to pinch the tracked roamer with the help of your teammates. Once you've got that handled, use his smoke grenades to cut off angles and work your way into sight for an execute. Speaking of execute, we should probably just execute Nokk, because she's the worst operator in the game. With that being said, if your enemies are being heavily reliant on cameras for information, she can be okay. Use Nokk to establish map control early and sit in areas where cameras can see you. With the ability on and without moving, you'll be completely undetectable, allowing you to catch roamers by surprise as they rotate throughout the map. This illusion of information can make them feel safe and unprepared, leading to easy kills. If nobody comes, you can try to sneak into the site from the back during an execute, slowly lurking your way up. With her grenades, you can clear a path for yourself before this point, destroying any traps or barbed wire. Then push it later in the round once they think you've left and have less players alive to watch it. If you do manage to grab a kill while lurking, rotate off and find a new spot to sit. Waiting and baiting is really the only use for Nokk since her ability doesn't do anything else right now. Twitch, on the other hand, is a fantastic operator, being able to taser a ton of defender utility with her shock drones. Use the drones early in the round to destroy as much utility as you can, and if your drone survives the process, you can hide it to charge up more tasers for later on. Getting rid of default cams and clearing a pathway into the bomb site is super effective, getting rid of any traps and information that the defenders might be relying on. You could also get rid of wall denial for your team too, making for a well-rounded support operator with some big playmaking potential. As Dokkaebi, start the round off by gathering information or helping your team. Get in a position around the building and use your drone to either drone a teammate in or just gain information on the nearby areas. This will allow you to be a useful member of society while your calls are charging up. If you're clearing the map, use the first call in combination with your information and teammates to hunt down the roamers. Taking them out with the assistance of the call is very useful because once you've killed one, hacking cams is very safe and very simple. Just walk over to the body and hack away. From there, you can use the defender cams to search the map or force them to destroy their own info as it's now working against them. Now that you've got all the info and control on the roam, set up and execute with your team and use your last call during this time to make it even easier to clean house on the bomb site. You know what I'm about to say here, right? Yes, it's about your dad again. Yes, he calls me and says goodnight every night. Honestly, it's mixed signals for me, like a will he, won't he kind of thing. But also, like, he's definitely in love with me, right? Go ask him for me. I kind of like this dynamic of you going and asking questions for me while I teach you about Rainbow Six Siege. Like, what is this? And also the fact that all of your dads combined are now susceptible to my R6 persuasion. Let's go. So anyway, to play Aruni, place the Surya gates around the bomb site on common entrances that the attackers come through. This forces them to burn their utility in order to push through it or to get rid of the utility on the other side. You can place them on mirror windows to protect them better too, and have the ability to reset them after 30 seconds, potentially wasting more attacker time and utility. Some of the best gates are on isolated windows that attackers like to repel on, because it stops them from being able to drone through it as well. Be careful though, as you don't want to place gates right next to where your teammates are playing, as the on and off animation of the gate is information that the attackers can use to pre-fire the defenders as they're swinging. Playing above the bomb site with Aruni is a great option too, being able to make lines of sight in the floor with her incredible fisting abilities and being able to drop down a hatch with it as well for a quick rotation back. You can even use this vertical play to reset gates from above or below. As IQ, you'll want to use your scanner to find any electronic gadgets. She's a great counterpick to ops like Valk and Echo, being able to find their well-hidden cameras with ease. Take these out as soon as possible to stop the defenders from getting kills off them early on. Anything you can't destroy, call out to your team and ping the gadget for them. You can use the floor above or below to destroy the electronics if they're on a soft floor, and can even take out defenders who are on their cams. Use the suppressor to stop the bullet tracers so that the enemies don't know where you are. You can also use the windows around the site to get rid of gadgets too. Anything you see that's bulletproof, like maestro cams, you can use your grenades on to destroy. The number one goal is to get rid of as much defender utility as possible to increase the likelihood of your team winning the round. Once that's done, you can use the Commando, one of the best weapons in the game, to clean up the defenders. Another great weapon haver is Gridlock. Gridlock is best used for creating chaos in the round. Use the track stingers to not only create a barrier of spikes that hinder the defenders, but to make a ton of noise. This combination is perfect when doing direct sight takes, as it slows the defenders from pushing up and is loud enough to cover the sound of you walking in or the bomb being planted. If you're going to do this, run the smokes to cut off lines of sight and cover the tracks at the same time, making them more difficult to get around. The worst thing is blowing up your tracks with your own grenades. The higher in skill you climb, the more intricate this can get, doing the exact same thing without planting to bait out the defender utility and cause a massive distraction. This will pull the roamers back to the site in a panic, which actually helps your team take space on the opposite side of the map. You can also use the tracks on flanks, but it's not super reliable as they act like more of a time stall than a guaranteed source of info. Therefore, if you're going to use them like this, you still need to commit someone to watching it, whether it's with a gun or a drone. And if you want a much stronger attacker that's only slightly more difficult, just pick Blackbeard. Blackbeard is the best operator in the game right now, having both a shield and an assault rifle at the same time. Use him with the shield up to gather information as you walk around the map. If you find a defender who's looking at you, don't drop your shield out in the middle of the open, but instead duck into cover to add safety while you do the animation, or wait for them to stop facing your direction. If they aren't looking at you, then ADS away and shoot them in the back. With his grenades, you can force defenders out of cover and shoot them as they're running away from it. This is a super powerful tactic that basically guarantees a kill. With Blackbeard, anything goes, from playing super aggressive, blasting through windows and doors, to a passive, supportive operator that helps get plants down. Either way is completely viable as long as you're not engaging multiple enemies from multiple angles at the same time. This is his biggest weakness. To play Kali, use her lance to destroy wall denial off of reinforced walls. It's not entirely reliable, but it can be an easy way to get a wall if the defenders aren't playing to counter it. You can also destroy bulletproof utility with it, like castles, maestro cams, and shields. The most common mistake with Kali players is that they sit 10,000 miles away from the building, baiting with the sniper and begging the enemy team to peek them. Don't do this. It's unreliable and a terrible strategy overall. Instead, get up and be active with the team. The closer you are to the action, the better, allowing you to refrag your teammates as they push in and give you a much better chance to win. Before getting active though, use those lances like mentioned earlier to clear the utility that's stopping you from pushing in safely. Safety is not really a thing if you're the average Amaru player though. That's why I'm going to explain how to play her so that you aren't getting clapped the second you enter the building. When playing Amaru, be sure to get a drone in the map during the prep phase. Finding a clear entrance that you're able to enter quickly is going to be the most effective for gaining map control. Right before flying in with your ability, check your drone to be sure that it's still clear. This early map control is great to catch rotating defenders off guard as you're messing with the usual timings of their defense. She has an almost similar playstyle to Nokk, lurking around the map picking off defenders. However, instead of hiding on cameras, she can quickly rotate up hatches, making for a unique movement perk that can be useful in certain situations. Most of the time, you'll just be walking around shooting people with the G8 though. Then you have Mozzie, an operator with multiple playstyle strategies that you can choose from. The first is to place all of your pests down around the site at the start of the prep phase and then just go shoot as many drones as you can around the map. This is great for counter info on the attackers while getting the chance to hack a drone. It stops them from getting direct site access in the prep phase and gives you the time at the start of the round to move the drone to where you want it to be. I do think Mute is a better pick for this most of the time though. That's why we have a second option, which is to bring the pests with you on a roam, blocking off multiple routes for attacker drones. Now it's going to be harder to deny info from everywhere as you'll be traveling throughout multiple rooms and the pre-placed drones might be set up already. However, doing it this way is great for a bottom or middle floor bomb site because if you hack a camera, it's already on the floor above. Take a few seconds to hide it into a better area so that the attackers don't shoot it, then use it for a C4 on the attackers from below or to find an open flank route. Mozzie's a pretty good operator, but he thrives when using those drones effectively, which sometimes just isn't possible. As Iana, you can use her clones at any point throughout the round to gather information. It's a quick and effective way to figure out what's going on in order to reduce risk while making plays. Just make sure you're in a safe spot where you're not going to get flanked or pushed while doing it. Going directly for sight with Iana is a great option, adding pressure with the clones and finding the right time to push thanks to the info that you've got. Once you do decide to push, use the smokes to block off lines of sight so that you can make the play based on the info that you gain from your drones and clones. Outside of that, there's not really much to do with Iana besides a good old-fashioned clone bait where you hop off the clone at the last second so that the defender isn't ready for the fight. It can be risky, but if successful, it's extremely effective. Like when your father slid into my DMs. Risky, but extremely effective. I mean, look at us now, right? Beautiful. Hibana is another hard breacher in R6 who's the ideal candidate for opening hatches and making new lines of sight. Because of her smaller holes, she shouldn't be used for main walls like other hard breachers, but instead like a secondary one to add new points of pressure and crossfires onto the defenders. She has the ability to do this at range, being one of her main advantages over Thermite and Maverick. Hibana is really strong for players with aggressive playstyles, having flashbangs with her quick 3-speed movement for fast-paced playmaking. Being able to switch the X-Kairos launcher from 2, 4, and 6 pellets, you're able to be versatile in your hard breaching approach. 4 pellets will destroy a reinforced hatch, and with 16 pellets in total, she can single-handedly open 4 reinforced hatches throughout a round. So if you're attacking a bomb site like the basement of Bank, she is an ideal pick. And if you're picking Zofia, then you've committed yourself to the utility life. Bringing 2 stuns, 2 impacts, and hard breach tools, she has a boatload of utility that can be used in a variety of situations. Her thick 3 armor ass makes her a slower operator, which debilitates her when it comes to entry potential. However, what she lacks in speed and weapons, she makes up for with her utility. Being able to self-burn any ADSs or Wamai using the stuns and then destroying the bulletproof utility with the impacts is a very reliable way to limit the defender's information. She can also use the impacts from below to clear off wall denial or even kill defenders who aren't moving. With the stuns, you can pull Bandit out of his animation, stopping him from tricking, or just shoot it into a room to gather info. If the stun pops right away, there's a defender there, and if it falls to the ground before exploding, you're clear. This is super useful later in the round or when going for a plant, as a stun defender won't be able to hear you planting. With Bandit, placing down your bandits on main reinforcements and calling it a day is a fine way to play him, especially with his deadly loadout. However, if you want to take Bandit to the next level, you'll need to learn the art of bandit tricking. Bandit tricking is a key component to countering both Thatcher and hard breachers. This is because once an EMP goes off, Bandit is able to place down another battery faster than a hard breach charge, re-electrifying the wall before the hard breach charge explodes. Staying near the wall and placing batteries the second you see that EMP should be enough to get the job done, and it works against secondary EMP gadgets as well. The only real counter to this is clearing the bandit from below or mavericking the wall, in which case you should just give it up and spare your own life. Then we have Brava. The hardest part to being good with her is knowing when to pick her. She's not always a great pick, and that heavily relies on both what site you're attacking and what operators the defenders are bringing. For those reasons, you want to drone into the building in prep phase and try to spot out what defenders the other team has chosen. If you see a lot of operators that Brava can be used against, then she's a great pick. Just make your way up to the building after spawning in and hack as many of the defender gadgets as you can. Don't forget about the default cameras too. They can provide a ton of info for your team, especially when the defenders don't realize that you've hacked it. You'll want to have a specific goal in mind when picking Brava. That could be getting all the Kapkan traps to maximize kills, or removing the Maestro cams so that you can plant. Creating a pathway for yourself into the site is my recommendation, being able to hack whatever traps might be stopping you and then walking in to make a play. She's a very tactical operator and should be played like one. If you want a little extra pushing power, bring Osa. Osa is a niche operator who isn't great on every bomb site, but can be a powerful pick on the ones that she thrives on. Maps with long lines of sight and strong cuts are ideal for Osa, as her shields are best at range from the defenders. Posting up on these angles allows you to add cover where there was none before and dominate these ranges, being able to quick peek up off the shield. Use the shield while you're planting to create cover, protecting yourself from being shot. You can even melee the shield prior to planting so that the defenders can't see you plant, which I recommend doing if you don't have a teammate to cover you. Pulling out the shield off spawn is a great safety net from spawn peaks, but walking in and around the map with it out, while okay for face checking for information, isn't the safest option overall. If you have a teammate following you up while you do this though, it can be a pretty decent strategy for clearing rooms. Then we have Ram, an operator with a lot of destruction. Use the boogies to open a ton of floor space above bomb sites, tearing up the ground to add pressure to the defenders on site below. Like Buck, you don't want to peek into those holes right away, but instead be sure to use all of your boogies first. The longer you stay alive, the more pressure that accumulates on the defense. They'll try to flank and peek up through the holes, so if you stay passive and gather information with your drones, you can get some easy kills on aggressive defenders. Use your drones at this point to look through the boogie holes. If you see someone below not paying attention to the vertical holes, you can walk up to them and then take them out from above. That's just one way to get use out of Ram though. She's also super effective when used on barricades, gaining quick lines of sight onto defenders who might not be ready. This is great when used on site doors, as you can activate them to destroy all of the utility on the doorway as well. Boogies are extremely loud too, so if you have an extra, throw it down during a plant to cover the sound. Flores is also bringing the noise with 4 explosive Rotero drones, perfect for taking out bulletproof utility and having lethal consequences if defenders don't retreat from them. These Roteros are also great for information though, having a variety of usefulness throughout the round. Use the drones early in the round to destroy as much much utility as possible. Going to a safe place near the bomb site is best for this, as you can then drive them directly in and get to work. Any commonly held power positions are also recommended for doing this. The more utility you can destroy, the better. Like other similar operators, this can take a lot of time. You constantly want to be aware of what your teammates are doing, and if they're in the building pushing ahead of your drones, just stop using them and get in the fight with them instead. Having more people together in the building is going to be much more important and effective than blowing up a piece of barbed wire that isn't affecting the team whatsoever. On the other hand, me and your dad doing big explosions together might be affecting his home drastically. Another great utility clearing operator is Fuse. As Fuse, traverse around the outside of the bomb site and use various windows and walls to get cluster charges off on the inside. This destroys a ton of utility and may even get you the odd kill every now and then. For first floor or basement bomb sites, you can go above the site and use any soft floors for the same result. Cluster charges are extremely good for displacing defenders, making them exceptionally strong during an execution if you can get the timing right. He's also an excellent counter to bandit tricking, being able to fuse one side of the wall while your hard breacher gets the other with the help of Thatcher or some EMP gadgets. Unfortunately, he is on the weaker side of the attacking operators. For someone on the stronger side, pick Buck. Playing Buck is like being in a positive feedback loop. The more you play him, the better he becomes, as you use the map knowledge to learn more and more lethal angles through floors, walls, and ceilings. So, to make the most out of him, you just learn the maps as much as you can. From there, you can play vertically to push defenders around the bomb site, making it easy for your teammates to take them out as they scramble, or hold various entrances and exits that the defenders might rotate through. Playing aggressive as Buck is super effective, being able to make surprise plays through walls with the skeleton key or the flashbangs, or both. The best part of all though is that Buck is extremely good at every range, so use the skeleton key to fight in close ranges and then swap to the AR for longer range fights. Cade is also one of the best operators in the game, however, depending on your skill level, you might want to play him slightly different than other players. Cade can be used in a few different ways, all of which are used for wall denial. The first is simply placing the Cade claws down on default breaches to add another layer that the attackers are forced to get through. Secondly, you can place both Cade claws on one of the main walls to counter Callie from destroying the Cades. This is known as invincible Cades, where Callie can't break them. Lastly, and the most effective Cade strategy is Cade tricking. What this means is that you'll pick up your Cade claw as the wall is getting EMP'd or Callie'd and then place it down again to reset it. This is quick enough to stop any of the hard breachers if done right, however it can be countered by 2 Thatcher EMPs back to back. Or Maverick, of course. Keeping breaches closed is a massive advantage because it stops the attackers from gaining new lines of sight and forces them to feed in through the pre-existing site entrances. Feeding them in this way is perfect, especially in combination with Mira. Place Miras on reinforcements next to a soft wall to be able to peek off the Mira and pre-fire attackers through the soft wall. Or place them crouched on a soft wall to uncrouch and pre-fire them over top of the window. I like to wait and place the mirrors until after I check the defaults at the start of the round. Then once you know what way the attackers are pushing, you can place the mirrors in that direction to get the maximum value out of them. You'd be surprised how often people neglect a Mira window, making for easy round wins. I recently made a video explaining Mira in depth and showing off just how strong she can be if you want to learn more about her. As Mute, places jammers down beside doorways and on drone holes right at the start of the prep phase to stop as much enemy information as you can. Depending on what rank and region you're in, players will have a default push. This is where the attackers typically push or drone from, and using your jammers to contest those areas will maximize your effectiveness with Mute. Running the shotgun and playing off of the enemy's disinformation will allow you to win close range gunfights with ease as long as you've positioned yourself appropriately. This is why playing behind your Mute jammers and placing them in smaller areas is ideal. He's a counter to a ton of other operators on top of stopping drones, so always remember where you've placed the jammers in case you need to make use of one. But if you're up against a Zero, those Mute jammers won't be quite as useful. As Zero, get as many cams deployed as quickly as possible early in the round. Shoot them into rooms that have default cameras to quickly and efficiently get rid of the enemy information with the tasers from the cams. You don't want to fall into the trap of baiting with Zero, so deploy as many cameras as you can before checking them instead of checking each one after shooting it. That will save you some time and help get you into the action quicker with your team. Flank cameras from Zero are especially good, as you can put them in places drones wouldn't be able to get to, making them less likely to be spotted out from the defenders. Dead teammates can hopefully hop on those cams to call out any flanks. You can also shoot these cams on and around the bomb site, including through walls and ceilings, making for a great way to tase off any wall denial or any utility around the site. Because he also has hard breach tools, use Zero as a self-sufficient breacher this way, first getting rid of the wall denial and then hard breaching it afterwards. If you are going to play Zero, be sure to learn the callouts of the map. Half the battle is gaining the information, but the other half is being able to properly relay it to your team in order to get an edge. Speaking of edge, we have Maestro, one of the greatest edgers in the game, operators in the game. But not actually, he's actually just kind of mid. Place your Maestro cams in and around the site to gather information, shock drones, and even shock the attackers. Bring the impact grenades to destroy the cameras if they get hacked by Brava, or bring the observation blockers and place them in front of the cameras so that they can't be hacked as easily. Maestro is simple on the surface, but you can take him to the next level with some cool tricks. One of which is hiding the bubble on the opposite side of a reinforcement to shock the hard breach gadgets off the wall. Once the prep phase is over, find a safe spot to sit on site and use your bubbles to get rid of the attackers' drones and call out to your team. At his core, Maestro is an information op, but if nobody's relaying that info to the team, then there's no point to picking him. Next up is Tubero, who is most commonly used to freeze hard breacher gadgets. Each Zoto canister lasts 12 seconds and can be combined with a Cater Bandit to destroy wall denial if done properly. With no other wall denial, you can use each canister one after the other to waste a lot of time right from the start of the round, or you can use them on jump outs and flanks to freeze the claymores or air jabs. Tubero is a lot stronger when played on the fly like this, as you can also freeze yourself or teammates to counter many operators like Dokkaebi, Deimos, Glaz, and Lion. Use the DMR to hold long range pixel peeks that absolutely fry attackers that peek into them. He's a very flexible operator with a lot of purposes outside of wall denial, so don't be afraid to get off site and get active with him. Getting active with a teammate is even better, like a father-son bonding experience, except instead of you with your dad, it's me with your dad. Oh, breaking news actually, your dad has blocked me on all platforms and filed for a restraining order against me. I guess I can't talk about it anymore. Sorry guys, that's too bad. Valkyrie's a simple defender at her core. You place your cams and gain extra info for your team. However, she does get exponentially better the higher you climb in skill, from C4ing below using the information and finding better and better camera spots that provide maximum info with the least likelihood of being shot. Going into a custom game and finding different cam spots is a great way to get the most out of Valk. Or go watch one of those like top 25 Valkyrie cam spots on YouTube. I don't make those kind of videos personally, but my fellow R6 content creator Coconut Bra can definitely help you out. Tachanka's Shamika launcher is often misused for time stall, but its most impactful purpose is actually to push attackers out of cover. If you know an attacker is isolated somewhere, bank the Shamika off a wall or ceiling to land the fire on them, forcing them to move out of cover. Come in with a pre-fire at the same time and they're entirely done for. Make sure to use the LMG though, as it's great for site setup, but also one of Tachanka's best assets, being able to quick breach walls on the fly and use it for vertical play. Trying to stall time with Tachanka is not the best strategy, as smart attackers will simply walk through it thanks to the Shamika's lack of damage and range. This misconception is a large factor in why he's so high on this list in terms of difficulty. Another misused operator is Grim, except he's actually one of the best operators, unlike Tachanka. He's an extremely versatile operator that's a fantastic choice on any bomb site. The bees can be used to gain information on areas you're unsure about, to block off flanks for short periods of time, or for direct site takes to gain wall hacks on all the defenders while your team plants the bomb. Knowing how to make plays off the information you gain from the bees is the most important part. If it's a one-on-one fight, you simply need to push the defender. You have a heavy advantage here, being able to pre-fire them perfectly with the help from the pings. The direct site takes are also a great idea with Grim. Simply use the bees to cover as much area around the site as you can, and then based on the information you get, make a play. This might mean the whole site is free for you to walk in and take, or you can isolate the players that you do find while being aware of the areas you didn't bee off, knowing that there still can be players there. The bees are also great in a post plant, being able to bee off the diffuser afterwards. Grim just gets better the more you use him, but the key here is practice. Capitao is another difficult operator, having a ton of utility at his disposal. His firebolts are great for forcing defenders out of cover or holding map control while going for a plant. You could also place the flame bolts and the smoke bolts in the same area to stack their effects together. Using all 4 bolts this way during an execute is one of the best ways to play him, denying entrances and lines of sight and getting the bomb planted in the same period. Like I mentioned, he brings a lot of utility, including secondary hard breach gadgets and a Gon 6. Use the hard breach tools to make new avenues and lines of pressure early in the round, and take out bulletproof utility or a hatch using the Gon 6. Capitao is at his best when coordinated with your teammates, so be ready to work together if you're going to pick him. Then we have Cav, who sounds simple but is actually really difficult to play well. To play Cav well, you'll want to start out by getting rid of as many attacker drones as you can. The less information they have, the easier easier it's going to be to make plays using her silent step. I always run the shotgun on her, allowing for vertical play to hold window hop-ins and various entrances for some free kills. Making extra rotations for a roam or opening hatches to drop down late add more flank potential. The more routes you have to flank, the less likely they have the manpower and the information to watch them all. Roaming with Cav is your best bet, catching solo pushing attackers early in the round. To do this, hop on cams as the round starts and see where they spawn. Then rotate to the entrances that they're coming in from and contest. If you do get droned out, pick a new spot. If you get a kill, rotate away and come back from another direction. Always make sure to keep the attacker's information stale, so they're acting off of incorrect information and you're getting the jump on them. Cav is actually extremely strong in the right hands, which I explain more in this video if you're interested in playing Kavira. Pulse is next, being able to scan nearby attackers and relay that information to the team. You can play Pulse solo, but the lack of distance on the scanner makes it more powerful as a team op. That's why calling out what you see is the most important part of playing him. If you play underneath rooms with soft floors, you can use the scanner for easy C4 kills from below, but you need to be aware of other attackers hunting you down at the same time. It's a fine balance that might take some practice to figure out, but barricading doorways is a great way to protect yourself better. The key to winning with Castle is just to avoid making the site setup even worse for your team. Castling your roamers out of sight and your anchors into sight creates a division between your team, meaning you can no longer support and play off each other. Bad castles are worse than no castles, so when in doubt, just castle the exterior windows and entrances of the map. A good castle setup can be extremely strong though, creating new lines of sights and rotates that attackers won't be able to handle without expert droning. Then you have Nomad. Nomad's air jabs are extremely strong, with the ability of passivity or aggression. Passively use the air jabs to hold map control, like locking down a flank for your team, or use them aggressively to knock defenders out of cover, or at the very least check if an area is clear. These things are versatile, yet for some reason people tend to only use them for flanks. Don't fall for this trap, but instead learn to adapt to the other team and use them for whatever is needed at the time. Even a sloppy Nomad charge can work as a temporary cover from one angle while you peek into another. And because of legal reasons, I am not going to make a comment on other situations involving specific family members and the word sloppy. Not only can you lock down flanks for vertical takes, but she can be used for direct site takes too, locking the defenders out of the bomb site and making it extremely difficult to retake it. If you have the site, you can plant the bomb, and if it's air jabbed off, there shouldn't be any way for them to get back safely. As long as you hide in cover and wait for them to hit the air jabs, you'll be just fine. The most common mistake with Echo is saving them for plants every time you play them. While Echo cams can be used to stop these plant attempts, they're much more consistent when used aggressively. You can gather information for yourself to make plays or drone a teammate around and call out for them. While doing this, stun the enemies before engagement so they're at a disadvantage while your teammate fights them. Using them aggressively early on means you can set your team up for success before the attackers have the time to fight back. Then if both drones get shot, you don't have to worry about staying alive and you can actually use your life purposely. This allows for a confident playstyle that's extremely effective. Ying is another operator that's extremely effective. She has one of the best loadouts in the game, but only if you use it properly. There's a lot of different uses for the Candelas, but using them in the right moments is what's important. Droning ahead of time is only going to make her more lethal. The first option for Ying is to use the Candelas to blind defenders as a distraction and make a lot of noise for your team. This is a great bait as your teammates push from another direction or to get a plant down during that time. Next, you can use them to take space in the map, flashing an area to then push it afterwards, knowing anyone in that space will be fully blind. It's a super simple method for not only map control but easy kills. The last option, and maybe the strongest, is to use the Candelas during an execute to smoke off the defenders and blind everyone. Smoking it all off and dumping your Candelas in every crevice of the bomb site ensures that the blind defenders can't push up and can't fight back. If your teammate can plant during this, you're able to push through and capitalize on kills while your team gets into a post-plant situation. I miss him so much. So sad. Let him know for me, but don't tell the government. Glaz is next as an operator with a lot of different uses, depending on whether you're solo or stacked. If you're stacked, then playing Glaz to cover plant is one of the best uses, having a teammate going into plant while you cover with the help of the smoke grenades. I always recommend using the smokes because without them, Glaz's ability is pretty much useless. However, only having 2 of them, you have to be very calculated, which isn't easy. Throwing the smokes at the defenders will block off more of their line of sight, making it less likely that they spray through to get a lucky head. headshot. So use the smokes to block off the doorways or rotate holes and use that to gain the advantage. If you're solo, you can use glass to push aggressively onto site, smoking off yourself and walking amongst it to search different corners and cover that would be risky to do otherwise. Smoking into a doorway allows you to walk in that doorway and check around the room to find anyone who's exposed. It's a solid way to get picks on the site and gain control from there. His sniper also 3-shots barricade, so if you want, you can use this tactic to rush effectively and quietly with the help of the suppressor. And if you're struggling on the info game, then bringing out a Montang is usually a good crutch. Monty is extremely good for gathering information, being nearly unkillable if played properly. The goal with Monty is to create presence and relay what you're seeing to your teammates in order to organize a push. If you don't have a lot of knowledge of the game, it's going to be difficult to be effective with Montang. To be effective without communication though, you'll want to be aware of where your teammates are and make sure you have one nearby to help out at all times. Getting caught off on your own is extremely risky with him. If you do find an isolated defender, try to create space between you and your teammate. This makes it so the defender can't fight both of you at the same time, which is the perfect moment to drop your shield down. Now you can either distract the enemy while your teammate shoots him or vice versa. Whoever that defender is engaged with should stay safe while the other takes him out. He's by no means a simple operator, but he can be quite good in the right hands. Azami is an endlessly creative operator in R6, so if you're going to play her, don't stop exploring. Using the Kibas on the fly is one of the strongest uses for them. This allows you to create cover where there wasn't any before, or cross an attacker line of sight safely to retake positions and gain control. Getting into key locations can make or break rounds, so doing it safely is a huge benefit. You can also use the Kibas to waste time, blocking attackers out of areas for a small period, which can be super useful on a roam or late in the round. Creating cover in new areas allows you to hold rooms in positions that aren't possible with other operators, making her extremely unique and extremely effective at hard countering and attacking push, depending on what operators they bring. If you're playing Azami, you need to know when to switch up her playstyle. If they're bringing a lot of explosives, try not to place all your Kibas down and instead use them on the fly for playmaking. And if they're not bringing explosives, then creating one-way angles and setting up new areas of cover is going to be really helpful for your team. Then we have Sense, one of the worst ops, but still one of the most difficult. Use the ROU projectors in a similar way to smoke grenades, blocking off those defender lines of sight as you push in. This is great for direct sight takes or to block off plants and force defenders to run through it. The only counter to his gadget is spraying through it at the enemies or destroying them with explosives. You can also shoot them while they're being deployed. Sense is a difficult operator pick to justify being fairly weak overall, but having some extremely specific plays that can change the outcome of a round. Pre-placing the ROUs in specific locations and then activating them all at the same time can cut off all the right lines of sight for a perfect execute. However, those defender explosives again can take them out and ruin your entire plan, so you have to be careful. These walls get a major upgrade when combined with Grim, allowing you to get information on the opposite side of the wall for perfect precision through it while the defenders spray and pray. Our other shield operator Blitz has entered the race. As Blitz, you want to take aggressive entries into the building, frontlining for your team and hunting down roamers. Sprint around the map and check your corners. If you see an enemy is in close range, flash them and then shoot them with the pistol. This is essentially a free kill as long as they don't have any teammates around to help them. If they're further away, be sure to crouch and use cover to avoid taking damage. Keeping as much HP as possible is vital, as the defenders will slowly be able to chip it away throughout the round. The only time you should really melee with the shield is if your flash isn't charged up, as it's just unnecessary. If you couldn't tell by this point, Blitz thrives in close quarters, being able to seal the distance and destroy defenders, so aim to stick to these areas if possible. The more open areas leave him vulnerable and exposed, which is his weak point. However, sometimes it's inevitable and you will be caught off in these open rooms, which is where the smokes are ideal for blocking off lines of sight and creating that cover where it didn't exist before. Blitz isn't a one-man army though, he's also a great distraction for teammates, drawing the defender's attention to him while your team goes and makes plays. Being alive is his best asset as a constant threat the defenders need to worry about, so don't get overly aggressive when you don't need to be. Skopos is the newest defender in R6 at this point in time, and she is absolutely disgusting. With one of the best weapons in the game, you'll want to be taking as many gunfights as possible. If that's not reason enough, each of her bots has a separate health pool, meaning if you take damage, you can just swap to the other one for a second shot at life. Ideally, you've got one bot on the roam and then one on the bomb site, making it possible to teleport back quickly to help the team if they're being pushed. This also means you can play in areas you typically wouldn't be able to, as you won't get cut off and pinched since you can just switch bots. If this does happen, you can waste a lot of the attacker's time in exchange for one of your bots, which is definitely worth it. For the one on site, I'd recommend setting it up as a window for your team to look through. It's essentially a mirror window and a shield at the same time, making it easy to peek off of for easy kills. Just be careful when switching back to your roaming bot, as an enemy Claymore is a perfect counter. She's a very technical operator that requires a good foundation on how the game is played in order to get the most value from picking her. Next up, we have Fenrir. Fenrir is an extremely strong control operator, being able to hold multiple points of entry all at the same time. Use the mines to gain information on routes into the bomb site or on the rooms that you're trying to hold. Ideally, this gives you and your team advanced warnings as to where the attackers are coming from. They're great when placed in open areas where the attackers are exposed to multiple angles, as once they're blind, you can peek from any of these spots, making it much less likely that they get a lucky pre-fire onto you. You can hide these mines anywhere, which makes them extremely strong on any bomb site. Finding good spots to hide them makes it much less likely that they're destroyed, and much more likely that you get free kills from them. Use the cameras to find where the attack is coming from, then play off the mines on this side of the map. Once the attackers run into them, wait a second and then peek. This will ensure they're fully blind and allow you to capitalize off the trap before they escape. Most people don't use Fenrir anywhere near as well as they should be though. Fenrir is simple on the surface, but he's actually deeply complicated. That's why I made a video fully breaking down Fenrir and showing off some of the best setups with him. He can single-handedly be the winning piece for your team, so I highly recommend learning him further. And then you have Solus, who's not as strong as Fenrir, but still has a massive skill gap. She's an operator with a fluid playstyle, being most effective on a roam and poking at the attacking push. Use the scanner to spot enemy gadgets and take advantage of this information by exploiting the weaknesses of them. If you see a gadget on the ground outside of a typical runout spot, it's probably a claymore. You can use this information to hop out while shooting the claymore and then getting an easy kill on the attacker out there who was relying on it to protect them. The scanner is great for finding holes in the information that the attack has, adding safety to a flank, or finding the perfect spot to hide from the drones. Outside of that, you can use her to limit the attacker's information by finding the drones and shooting them. You can stop plants from below, but only if the attackers plant on the soft floors. A good team will plant on a cement floor or on top of a desk or other objects to avoid being floor banged. At the end of the day, Solus is an information op, so relay that info to your team and call out what you see. If your team knows where they're being droned from, they can adjust their position to get an advantage and you'll have a much easier time winning. To make it even easier though, just learn to play smoke. Smoke is one of the most versatile operators in the game, but also one of the most difficult. Whether you play him on site or on a roam, yes, on a roam, he's extremely lethal and unpredictable if you're using him properly. In this case, most people don't, which is why I'm here to explain them to you. Either use the smokes to cut off angles in order to isolate gunfights, or to get aggressive, sealing the distance between you and the attackers. This gives you a major advantage in the close range gunfights, thanks to the M5 shotgun, one of the best in the game. Smoke is most effective when you're highly aggressive, capitalizing off area control that the smoke canisters provide. It's an uncommon playstyle with them, but it works. Playing smoke passively is actually one of the biggest mistakes players make, waiting to use the smokes until the end of the round. While this can be useful in rare cases, most rounds won't come down to that final execute. Using him aggressively, installing time early on, is a guaranteed way to make sure you're useful every single time. This video goes into much more detail with examples if you're interested. For the R6 players with an artsy side, we have Maverick. Become the Picasso of your life by mavericking literally anything that you want into reinforced walls. Or use the blowtorch a little more practically in your matches by countering bandit tricking. Get a teammate to stare into your hole as you remove the bottom of the panel. Wait, what? This exposes the bandit's ankles, making for a one-way onto him that he can't fight back against. Or you can use the torch just to make lines of sight and add pressure onto the bomb site. This is a very effective strategy, especially when they're committing a lot of their defending lineup to wall denial. Nothing counters Maverick except for C4s and bullets, which literally applies to everyone. Plus, if you're careful about it and learn to Maverick safely, you should be okay. But again, he's one of the hardest operators in the game. It's best not to peek your holes away after making them, as they'll probably already be aiming at it, waiting for a moron like you to stick their face in it. Instead, make a few different lines of sight so they can't watch them all at the same time. You can try to quickly peek up at them and pre-fire using the holes, or drone it out for information so that you can choose the best angle. Now, this torch is also the quietest of the hard breachers, so sometimes making a sneaky crouch hole into a reinforcement can be enough to gain the advantage. Again, very difficult difficult, but very strong. Our most difficult attacker in the entire game, though, is Deimos. As Deimos, you'll first want to use your drone in the prep phase to scan as many of the defending lineup as possible. You can do this by not only scanning the operators, but pinging their gadgets around the map. You can only track specific operators, and you need to have them scanned in order to do it. Throughout the round, you can use Deimos however he's needed, but ideally you get the opportunity to hunt down roamers using the tracks and then try and kill them. Your scan on them will be a consistent ping, while their scan on you is not. They'll know your general area, while you'll know exactly where they are. This gives you a massive advantage in the gunfight, especially through floors. Isolating track defenders while being aware of other possible threats is the difficult part of Deimos, which is why good droning is almost necessary to be good with him. When you've got someone tracked, relay that information to your team so that they're able to help pinch and isolate those players alongside you. The more info you give them and the more info they give you, the stronger Deimos is going to be. And lastly, we have the most difficult operator in Rainbow Six Siege, Clash. You see, Clash seems easy on the surface, but to play her well, it's actually really difficult. Clash is one of the most annoying defenders to go up against, especially when played properly. It feels kind of wrong to be helping people get better at Clash just because of how much she's hated, but I'm going to give my best Clash advice regardless. To play Clash, you'll want to keep as much distance from the attacker as possible, while being in the range to shock and slow them down. Finding this ideal point between the two is only step one of playing Clash well. You'll also need to call out to your teammates and try to organize plays on the stunned attackers. Keeping the distance is important, that way when you run out of shock, you can still retreat without them meleeing your shield and shooting your feet. Positioning is also extremely important though. You need to always make sure you have a safe retreat route back to site so that you're not getting shot in the back when you need to give up space. Clash isn't for locking down an area and staying there the whole round. She's better used wasting time and rotating to wherever the attack is coming from, constantly adjusting to the enemy team and what they're planning. You need a massive amount of awareness to play Clash properly, and the better teams you play against, the harder she gets. With Year 10 Season 1 coming soon, I'm sure you're wondering about the new operator. Well, for me here in the past, they're not out quite yet, so be sure to subscribe to watch my full breakdown once it drops. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. I appreciate you greatly, and I hope you have a great day. And say goodbye to your dad for me.
Ha 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 ha, Daddy.